I've always been a pretty big From Software fan. I'm not going to claim to be an OG from back in the Demon Souls days or anything. Even Dark Souls release. I probably got into these games 2012, 2013 or something. A friend recommended the original Dark Souls. I remember him telling me all these little stories. He's playing through the game. It's so difficult. It's unlike any other sort of modern game that you try. And I was trying to picture it. He was telling me things like, there's no world map. You've really got to think about what you're doing. You get into battle and you can't just mash buttons like you could in most games from those days. I mean, 2012, 2013, that was like peak console gaming, focus gaming, I guess we could say. It was dark days for PC. There was no Baldur's Gate 3 or any of these sort of PC-centric games back then. It was dark times for PC. So hearing about this Dark Souls, that wasn't just like every Ubisoft game out there. Again, there's no world map or something. I was trying to picture what this is. But I took his recommendation. I went looking for this game. I went to different stores. I was playing on, I think, an Xbox 360 back then, and I eventually found the last copy that was remaining in my area, and it didn't have even the real box art. It was the fake box art at these stores. I think they call it GameStop in America, EB Games here in Australia. And I got this, and then I put it in the Xbox, started it up, and I was hooked very quickly. I sucked. I won't go through the whole story that everyone's had with Dark Souls, but the short of it is, I think I played 70 hours, got up to the tomb. Forget the name of the tomb, but it's the one you could go to at the start of the game with Pinwheel and everything. I got there later in the game, as most people do. 70 hours, lost my save, corrupted, couldn't continue, but I wasn't angry. I was actually almost happy, because I was like, oh, well, I can experience this again now. I'm going to start again, and I'm going to play it all through, because it's such a great time. And that's when I realized this was one of my favorite games. So I just had this feeling that From Software, who were developing these titles back then, I think Dark Souls 2 was also out, Dark Souls 3 not that far away, so I was super pumped. It was a new dev, they were making incredible games, and I was a fan ever since. I played all of them. I remember patiently waiting for Dark Souls 3 on release, waiting for the postie to deliver it, but he didn't do so until 6 p.m. I was super pissed off because I took a day off work and didn't get to play it till nighttime anyway, but incredible time. It was the same for Sekiro. I think maybe Bloodborne was in there somewhere. I did buy a PS4 just for that, but Sekiro, that was another fantastic one where I was really enjoying myself. But when I think back now, I feel like Sekiro was the last time where I really felt that From Software was on the up and up, and things were only getting better. Now, some will probably say that's unpopular, they won't agree with that, because for many, Elden Ring is one of, if not, their most favourite game ever. It's critically acclaimed, people seem to love it, and it obviously sold all the copies and everything. But for me, Sekiro was kind of the peak, maybe not my favorite From Software game, but just at that time, I felt like they were on their A game. They were on the up. Things were just incredible for them, and I couldn't wait to see what they would do next. But we're just in that position now, and I didn't want to say this sort of a few weeks ago when the Dusk Bloods, that Switch 2 game that From Software are making, I didn't want to say it then that I was getting a bad feeling, because it can sound sort of reactionary. You've got to think these things through sometimes, or it can be a bit hyperbolic maybe, that you're just reacting to the latest news. But now that I've let it sort of sink, this is how I feel. I'm starting to think that From Software are maybe over the hill, and their best days are behind them. I'd love to be proven wrong. I hope that's bullshit. I hope they make me look like an idiot and they produce something incredible. They've got whatever it is, the sequel to Elden Ring in the works, or something similar, very single player focused. It's going to blow me away like Sekiro did, where it's still sort of the Souls formula, but it's got enough of a twist where it feels like you've got to learn the systems again, and it takes you back to your very first Souls game that you ever played. I think most people's treasured memories of any From Software game is the very first one that they played, because that's where you learn, that's where you die, and you suck, and you've got to just figure all these things out, and that's kind of the best feeling about these games. If like me, you played Dark Souls 3 maybe as your second or your third From Software game, and you just sort of smash through it. You have some trouble, but it takes you probably half the time of a Dark Souls 1, your first one. It's still fun, and you still have a great time, explore the levels, some great bosses. It's not quite the same as your first one, and I think From Software understand that, which is why they did so well with Sekiro, and they tried to do new things, I guess, in Elden Ring as well. So I appreciate their challenge, why they're trying new things, but I still think some of the latest stuff from them, news, upcoming games, suggests that things maybe aren't so good, and maybe we've seen the best of them already, and maybe it is that we start to look at other devs for not just our Souls experience, but really just great single-player games. Maybe it's not going to be From Software anymore, and I don't want it to sound hyperbolic again, but I don't know how else to look at this. Because post-Elden Ring, we obviously have this Night Reign thing coming out, standalone adventure within the Elden Ring universe, coming out in like a month, and they've done tests and things. Now, I had a bad feeling when I heard about this. From what I understand, I haven't looked into it too much. I didn't do the play test, I just don't really care. It's multiplayer focused, it's got a battle royale sort of feel, and it's just reusing a lot of Elden Ring assets, basically. It's probably made somewhat on the cheap, and I was willing to give that the benefit of the doubt. If something like this was coming out from EA or Ubisoft, I think people would have laughed at them, just pointed and said, this looks pathetic, this sucks, no one's going to play it. Because it's From Software, people were a bit more generous and thought, well, they've just released an incredible game a couple of years ago, had a DLC, the Shadow of the Erdtree, that I think was quite mixed. I haven't even played it yet because I just couldn't really be stuffed. Everything I was hearing about it, just that focus may be more on difficulty than great level design and some of these other things. Maybe this is just a me problem and I'm just getting too old and too slow and I'm just sucking at these games. But just the thought of going through and spending hours and hours on every boss, which is what it was sounding like. I'll get to it one day, but I just could not be bothered. However, this just sounding really, really mixed. And anytime I saw people discussing Night Reign positively, just felt like they were telling themselves that this is all fine. It's all okay. It's all on fire behind me, but everything's all cool. They were just sort of saying that because it was From Software and they didn't want to criticize them because they've had so many good times. Everyone's always saying amazing things. Surely they're not going to get this wrong. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I get why. They've got such a great track record, but everything on paper, and even hearing what people have said about the playtests, doesn't sound so good. All that aside, though, because it's made on the cheap, maybe, just maybe, it was just little quick, I don't even want to say a cash grab, just using the tech, trying something different, the B team getting to work on something they could get out relatively quickly. Maybe it's okay. Maybe the world isn't collapsing around us. However, when the Dusk Bloods was announced for Nintendo Switch 2, I don't think ever in my gaming life have I been so excited and then just had the rug pulled from under me and then just been like, I've got zero interest and I couldn't give a fuck anymore. That is what the Dusk Bloods felt like, because that announcement, the trailer, I thought, yes, this is what From Software have been working on behind the scenes. That Night Reign thing was just a distraction. This one's directed by Miyazaki, so it's the A team. He's probably been hard at work on this since Elden Ring base game launch, so it's had 4 years in the oven. They make games pretty quickly. This is it. It kind of looks like Bloodborne. It's kind of got a steampunky feel to it as well. I thought, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. And all right, Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. Kind of weird, but also maybe Nintendo paid them a ton of money because they knew this would be a great thing to bring a new audience to their console almost at launch. So I thought this is great. Then I find out after, as it says here, that it's a new PvP VE masterpiece. So once again, like with Night Reign, a big focus on the multiplayer, meaning it's likely that From Software's 2 titles they've had in the works for a little while are both PvP focused. And we don't even know if they've got anything single player focused in the works at all. So is this like a new direction? Is this the road that they want to go down now? It mentions take on the role of the Bloodsworn and battle up to 7 other players to claim the first blood in this exclusive coming next year. So very multiplayer focused. I think anyone saying, oh, no, but there's normal enemies in it. It's not just PvP. I think anyone saying that is coping at this point. Maybe if Night Reign wasn't a thing and it was just one of these, you could say, well, they're just trying something new. It's fine. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But two multiplayer-focused titles releasing within a year of each other, that to me just seems like a new direction. And I just wonder if they don't have that passion for the single-player stuff quite as much anymore. Maybe that sounds like a leap because they've been doing that for years and this was just a couple of games. But it's what I'm talking about earlier with the fact that making these games is difficult because once you've played one Dark Souls, one From Software game, you've kind of played them all because it's hard for them to keep coming up with new things to excite everyone. If you play Dark Souls 3, it feels like they're just trying to make everything maybe bigger and maybe harder. Elden Ring does that a lot. And I'll give you a clear example. I think From Software's been very guilty. It's also why I don't think that Elden Ring is quite as good as some people say. They've been guilty of what I would call phase bloat, where their approach to bosses is, well, rather than more interesting designs that wow us and feel innovative, what they've started to do a lot is you get one boss, but it's actually more like two bosses or three bosses, sometimes maybe even more than that in one fight. And the way that works is it might have a health bar, a full health bar, and when you get that down to 0 or halfway, the boss changes so drastically, it's like a new boss. So you're almost having to fight a second boss within that same fight. And I remember the Dark Souls 3 DLC, they went kind of crazy with this, and the first one, I think it was Ashes of Ariandel or something. The last DLC boss of that DLC was so hard. It had 3 phases or something ridiculous. And that was the first time in my Dark Souls experience where I thought, I can't really be fucked with this. This is getting annoying and doesn't actually feel that satisfying. Because it had 3 phases. And what that means practically is when you fight that boss, you kill it, basically. You learn the fight and you kill it. But then, no, it's another phase. So then you have to learn this second phase and all the new movesets. It's totally different. You kill that, oh, there's another phase, almost another boss as well, and now you got to learn that and then kill it. Now, it might sound okay, but throughout learning all of this, you're dying and you're struggling. Even if you learn phase 1, you learn phase 2, you're still probably going to make mistakes because it's all so precise and it's quite difficult. And again, I'm sure there's masters who have no trouble and it's all great. For someone like me who I'm not min-maxing, I don't know the mechanics that well, just an average gamer going through, it can get really, really tedious because once you get to, say, the 3rd phase pretty consistently, you're not able to kill the boss, but you're trying to learn it. What ends up happening is you just have to go through the busy work of killing those first 1-2 phases over and over again to get to the phase that actually matters, the content you're currently stuck on and you're trying to get through. So that it's so time-consuming because of all the deaths and everything getting up to it. And I don't actually think it's very good design. I think it's kind of lazy, and I think it was From Software maybe starting to run out of ideas on how to challenge the player. They do always say it's not about the difficulty, and they don't design their games around that. But when I see those 3 phases and compare it to their earlier games, I don't know if I believe that. It does feel like sometimes they've struggled with keeping the challenge up. I think Sekiro works so well because they fundamentally changed combat to where they didn't need to do those things as much. And sure, there is sometimes second phases. I think 2 phases is where it feels fine. It's sort of a natural progression of things. But when you get to like 3 phases, it starts to get a little bit pathetic and just unfun, in my opinion. Maybe people don't agree with that. I haven't looked into that really at all. It's just something I've been thinking about when I think back to my favorite From Software games and where things get tedious. Now, when they went from Sekiro to Elden Ring, I also felt that, are you going in the right direction here? Now, again, unpopular opinion because some people love Elden Ring and think it's the best game of all time. I don't know about that. I enjoyed it. I played it for 100 plus hours. I tried to do everything I possibly could. But I didn't feel like I really needed to play the DLC. I felt like I'd almost had enough for now, even though it's been out for a while. I felt nothing pulling me to play it just yet. I also think that the best things about Elden Ring were just all of the things that it has in common with the old Dark Souls games. So when I say that, I mean the legacy dungeons. So when you explore, is it like Stormvale Castle or one of the first castles you come across? When you go in there, it's just kind of like a Dark Souls level or area. And that's fantastic. It's one of the best things about the game. There's heaps of areas like that in Elden Ring, so it is high quality. There's a ton of great stuff. But I feel like they're the best things about the game, whereas the open world isn't really that good. It's not that interesting. It's repetitive. There's not that many interesting things to find, really. And all the open world really does is, A, make it so that you have to traverse to each new legacy dungeon, and then also find these little mini dungeons, which have very questionable quality around them. When you do a few of them, it's fine. You go to a sort of a crypty area, a cavey area, it feels pretty good, but it just gets so repetitive. And I was thinking back to Oblivion, the Oblivion remake, remaster, or whatever that's being talked about, and I've criticized that game for having it lacks variety when it comes to dungeon crawling, because all of the dungeons are so samey and uninteresting. And the truth is, I think Elden Ring is sort of guilty of that as well. Maybe not quite as bad, but it's the first time I noticed in a From Software game that things were formulaic. And I've always praised From Software titles for not being like that, not feeling gamey. They're so immersive, they buck the trends of like the Ubisofts with the generic open worlds with busy work and activities, and other companies, I think Sony and certainly others, have kind of copied that formula, and it's just so old, it's so repetitive. From Software didn't do that stuff, but I really felt that with Elden Ring, they definitely were doing that. The dungeons just felt very gamey, repeating bosses and enemies over and over to the point where it just wasn't that interesting. And maybe some of that's on me, because when I play these sorts of games, I like to explore every nook and cranny. It's why one playthrough took me over 100 hours, is I did want to do every possible dungeon, explore every area. And my advice would be, if you were playing it for the first time, don't do that. Don't try and explore everything, because you're actually going to get the worst out of the game. Just go through the story, the main big areas. You're going to have a much better time. I don't think the open world really helped Elden Ring that much. And when I think about the game, there's a lot of things that I could criticize, like the art direction. I never thought that the art direction of Elden Ring was all that great, really. It looks fine, and I mean, some people praise like the yellow in places with the trees and some other things. It's totally fine. I don't have a high standard with graphics or art direction, really. But I felt that people were unnecessarily praising it and making it out like, this is the best looking game I've ever seen. Maybe not graphics, but the art direction's fantastic. I never saw that. I've always seen Elden Ring as basically just reused Dark Souls 3 assets and trying to be as creative as they possibly could. But it just felt like just a bunch of stuff thrown at the wall to see what sticks. Never felt very cohesive to me. Maybe because I suck as a visual artist, so I just don't get it. But I never felt like the art direction was really a big thing. When you compare it to Bloodborne or even the Dusk Bloods, I think the Dusk Bloods actually looks fantastic, and I was hooked in there. I didn't really feel that with Elden Ring. Again, the game is fun to play. It's an 8.5 or something for me. I don't think it's the very best of From Software, and even playing that, I sort of felt, what's sort of going on here? What direction are they going to go in next? And I was hoping they might start leaning towards more of the linear stuff. We'll call it linear, the Dark Souls, Bloodborne sort of game, Sekiro. I thought maybe at least, if they're going to keep doing open world stuff, because Elden Ring was so popular, I get it, it's their biggest game, biggest revenue generator, why would they not keep going in that direction? I thought maybe they'll do that, but then the other team will do a more linear game, or get the best of both worlds. I don't want to go like The Legend of Zelda, where we don't even get any just normal, I guess, orthodox Zelda games anymore. We either get Breath of the Wild stuff, now even the 2D Zelda, that recent one, Echoes of Wisdom or whatever, even that's gone in another direction. So we don't even get traditional Zelda anymore. I don't want that to happen with From Software, because I do believe that there's more to do with the traditional formula, which is why everyone buys the Souls-likes that come out, the Lords of the Fallen, the Lies of P. People want more of this. They genuinely do. Put a new spin on it, change things up, like I played The Surge recently, and that's a pretty solid game, not in the same class as Dark Souls, obviously, but you can do different stuff, different styles. there's so much that can be done with the formula. To see From Software instead PvP, multiplayer focus, to think that the Dusk Bloods has probably been in the works for 4+ years since Elden Ring, and now this is what we're going to get. I don't think that the core fan base, they're not going to criticize it immediately, and there is sort of a cultish aspect to From Software now because they're so popular, and I think anyone being critical has been told to get good. I think that's been a genuine criticism. I've spoken to people before where they'll just say, oh, I don't play games that are too hard, they're for elitists and stuff, and I'm certainly not in that camp. I think that's nonsense. I don't think these games are usually all that difficult. It is just about learning the mechanics, and if you take the time to learn, it's a fulfilling experience, and it's great. You don't need to have incredible hand-eye coordination or anything. The games aren't really like that, the good ones. It is just about learning, taking the game in, not button mashing, and actually just making the most of the mechanics. And then you have a fantastic, fulfilling time. Again, I think they started to steer away from that when they got into the phase bloat and some other things. So this isn't like a generic criticism of From Software. I've loved their games so much. Some of my favorite titles ever they've produced. But it's an unfortunate direction, and I don't think they're going to get criticism from people ahead of time. It's going to take a while. The Dusk Bloods will come out. I think a lot of people will try and sort of pretend to like it, and they won't want to be that person who's trying to sound edgy for the sake of sounding edgy, that they'll want to be involved with this, and no, this is great, it's the next From Software masterpiece, it's got to be. It may take a while for the dust to settle that people just want something like a Dark Souls again. They just want the best from Software for them to focus on their strengths, not this other crap. And I want to mention that now because I could keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I know I don't like this. I don't want Night Reign from you. This looks like a piece of shit. It sounds like a piece of shit. I don't want this multiplayer crap from you. If I wanted that, I'd go to other developers who I know could do a better job. And maybe this is just my own anecdotal experience, but anytime I've done anything multiplayer related in Dark Souls, it hasn't worked. It's been broken, it's been laggy, you try and hit the other person, and they're already like 10 meters away when you swing your sword and they teleport around the map because it's so laggy. Maybe that's just me and Australian internet, but it's never worked at all. Perhaps other people have had a better experience, I don't know, but multiplayer's just always been hopeless in these games to me, and it's not what I want. I want the high-quality level design. There was some of it in Elden Ring. I want more of that. I want some new spins on things like you did with Sekiro, because that was incredible. I thought you'd keep doing that. It keep coming up with new, innovative stuff. This, to me, is not innovative, just going in a generic multiplayer direction. The Dusk Bloods is such a shame. It looks incredible, the art direction. I was so disappointed when I found out it was just another multiplayer title from them. We've seen other developers try this, fail miserably. Think of all the Sony studios that have been, whether they've been forced or they wanted to go into games as a service direction, it didn't work out. And I don't think it's going to work out for these people either, for Miyazaki and the From Software team, because they had lightning in a bottle. Do not squander it. I haven't even mentioned Armored Core 6. I thought that was a pretty good game. I think it was solid. I do think it was not as good as all the Dark Souls games, and I'd prefer they didn't bother with it, and they did make something more like Dark Souls, because they do that even better. If they want to do more Armored Core stuff, it's totally fine. I just think it's better if it doesn't come at the expense of the just genuinely 10 out of 10 gripping stuff that From Software have come out with at the time. So I don't want this. I'm happy, again, to be proven wrong if maybe I'm missing something, and actually making a game where you play with 7 other people and you're battling is apparently going to be even better than a Dark Souls experience. Maybe for some people it will be. I think for most people who've loved this company for a while, it's not going to be, but we'll see more, I guess. I really just hope that these are both smaller games, actually, and in the background, they're cooking up something way more special, whether it is an Elden Ring sequel that takes on board some fair criticisms and gets back to their best, or if they're even working on something more linear. I really hope so. I hope this isn't another case of the Blizzards of the world, even Ubisoft back in their early days where they made incredible games like Splinter Cell, the early Raymans, and then just fell off a cliff. I don't want to see that happen with From Software as well. Please don't chase multiplayer cash or whatever, chase these trends thinking you need to, because it's become challenging to come up with new ideas, to spin the Souls formula into something fresh. I'm sure that there's more you can do. People want it. There's demand for it. This isn't it, the Dusk Bloods in this direction. But we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.